This is the RAM pack that I modified by putting a PCB with a battery holder on it so that you don't have to desolder the battery to replace it. And these PCBs have turned up, which is a more manufactured version of the manually made PCB that I made in there. Well, it's not really a PCB because nothing was printed. So I'm going to take this prototype off and put this one on. It's a thinner PCB as well. It's just, I think it's 0.8 millimeters, so it should be give me a little bit more height to work with in the case with the battery and the battery holder and so on. So let's see how that goes. So first things first, I've take that apart. I've replaced the where is it? I've replaced the handmade PCB, which I can't find now, and put the new manufactured PCB in there, and it's sort of better. It does work. So I've got a battery there and it fits in the case. I've had to cut the sides off a little bit differently because of the positioning of the battery and the pins and things when I made this PCB, so it didn't match the handmade one, which is hardly surprising. But now, because of the thinner PCB, once you cut that off properly, it does actually fit in there better, as long as you make a modification, which is to cut this corner off here so that the PCB clears that IC, and that means it can sit lower and horizontal on top of some surface mount components there, which is really neat. It's neater, I think, than the oh, there it is. It's neater than the manually made one I made. I had to file the edge of the board away here, but I'm now using a PCB that's as thick as the PCB here is when I filed it away, so it fits in there quite nicely. I am wondering how well this will stand up to shocks, especially in that direction, because it could possibly lift the battery off the board. These springs may not be strong enough if you whack it like that to hold the battery against the PCB. You'd need quite a force to do that, and I have whacked this RAM pack on the desk and nothing seems to happen. But that is one possibility, because it's not soldered on there, it's just mechanically held and pushed onto the PCB, then it's possible. I mean, it will have less vibration immunity or shock immunity, but whether you're going to notice that, I don't know. I think you're going to need quite a whack to do it, and also the RAM contents will probably stay there for a very short period of time. It's only going to be a few milliseconds that the battery will be lifted off the board. So maybe that's why the original was soldered on, or maybe cost. It's difficult to tell really, because this is definitely more expensive and harder to assemble as well. It takes quite a while to assemble this. So I've actually made, well, mistakes. Well, there's one mistake on there. I mean, even on a board this simple, and physically it wasn't that simple actually, I was concentrating on the physical aspects of the design. I had to forget about the design rules because I don't want to connect these two pads on the sides here together because they're connected through the battery holder. What I also did was forget to connect this this pin here to this pad here, so it wasn't actually connected. So even on something that simple, I managed to get the circuit wrong. Fortunately, it's easy to fix. You just put a wire between the pad and the pin. It is fairly tricky to make though. When I solder the well, the footprint's correct, so it fits perfectly on the board. These two holes match up with the ones on the PCB. I am assuming there's only one layout of RAM PCB for the RAM pack. If there isn't, then you'd have to run wires. Instead of being straight through the two boards, you'd have to run a wire somewhere else, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Just take a bit longer and be a bit fiddlier. When I solder this one here, which is on the what is it, the negative connection of the battery, I actually have to file that down in order to make it smooth, because you don't want a wire poking up into the battery, so that's a bit fiddly. And if I make any more, I'm obviously going to have to fix the electrical problem that's on there, but also I think I'm going to have to take this corner off here so that it clears this IC. I wasn't sure whether it would fit in the board. It does, sorry, in the case. It does fit in the case, but it just lifts it up a little bit and stops it from this bit here from clicking into that bit. So yeah, these are okay. They work as a first revision, I think, and they're not really any different to a final revision. They're just a little bit harder to put together. So it does work. I've got some test data in there. Or I should still have it in there, hopefully, after all the fiddling about that's going on. Yeah, so I suppose actually the case holds the battery in this way, so if you whack it that way, the battery isn't kind of come flying out of the battery holder. But there we go. Let's see. I still have my test data in there. Yep, and then some letters of the alphabet up to K, L, M, N. Oh, there we go. So it is still working. And there we go. Version 1. Probably ought to be a version 2. There was one other thing that I had to do, which is just ordering. You can see these are the battery clips that I managed to find in fairly high quantities at low cost, much cheaper than taking them off the lily pad that I had. But unfortunately, they're actually bigger in this direction. You can see to the one that I actually had on the prototype, to the extent that they're actually too big to fit in the case, because you need to fit inside these arms here, there, and it doesn't. So that was great when I found that out. But what I've managed to do is just cut those down. It's pretty easy to do, it's not really a problem. So you can see that I've chopped this one, I've chopped that side off and that side off, which means that it now fits on the board nicely and is about the same size as that, maybe actually a tiny bit smaller. So quite a bit of fiddling round, but you can do it, and I think that's I mean, it's more convenient, definitely. The only downside is probably vibration resistance, but I'm not sure you're going to notice that. And it fits in the data pack case very nicely now. So one RAM pack battery adjustment PCB.